Hi, I wanted to do a video to show you a few things about SA3. A few people had asked questions, and I thought it would be a little more efficient to do a video so that I could post it for everybody. Um, with SA3, there are two parts to it. The first part is an annotated bibliography, and the second part is some sort of presentation that could be in a variety of different genres. I'll talk about that in a minute, but first the annotated bib part. For the annotated bibliography, you're choosing one of these four questions. It's fine if you'd like to narrow the question a little bit. One of my students is writing about how playground design has changed in terms of safety issues. Um, uh, Someone else is writing about a particular trend in playground design that she found a lot of good sources about. So you can narrow and tweak these as you see fit, depending on what information you find. Just make sure that it's clear on your annotated bib what question you're dealing with. As for the annotated bib itself, the first thing that you need to do is start finding some sources. Now, you may want to start finding some sources first and then see what sources you can find, and then pick a question depending on the sources you find, or you could do it the other way around, whichever seems to make sense for you. I would encourage you to find more than just the 5 sources that are required, so that you can do some sifting. It's really important in this assignment that you pay attention to this scenario. So you imagine a professional audience, that you're getting some resources together to present to them um, in your attempt to persuade them that they need to renovate this playground, and to give them some information about how best to do that. So academic, professional audience means you want your sources to consist probably primarily of academic papers of one sort or another, or reports issued by well-respected organizations such as the American Academy of Pediatricians, or something along those lines. You probably do not want Huffington Post articles. You do not want short little blog posts by who knows who. You want some really credible sources. You don't want sources that just repeat the generalized information that everybody already knows. You want some sources that give you some statistics, that give you some hard research about the benefits of playgrounds, or some statistics about safety, or that sort of thing. So good quality sources are really important, and if you look at the criteria at the bottom, that's the first criterion listed. I'll do another quick video to show some of the ways that you can find these sources. Um, okay, so as far as the annotated bib itself, once you find the sources, um, you find a list of sources, then you want to go through, finalize the question that you're going to be addressing, and identify the best sources that answer that question. The assignment again calls for um, 5 sources. You may have a source or two that you find online that you can't access the complete content. A book, for example. I'm not expecting you to go out and actually have the book in hand. Remember what the purpose of the annotated bibliography is. It's to give to this school board or community council, town council, or whatever it is, um, so that they can go out and read these resources on their own. So while you need to access some information for some of the sources, you may have one or two sort of reasonably hefty books or long reports that someone might want to consult. If you could, a book, for example, if you find it on Amazon, you may be able to look inside the book and get a little bit of information that you could use. You're then going to be using at least a couple of those sources to do the second part, which is the overall presentation. But I'll get to that in a minute. So as far as the annotated bib goes, this is the first time I've done the assignment in quite this format, so I don't have a sample that deals with this particular topic, but I can show you another annotated bib from another class from a different semester. So this is an annotated bibliography about the use of robots in the veterinary field. This assignment was to do the annotated bib and then to do a short report. That is one of your options, but you have several other options, and you can replace that short report with something different. But the report part is at the beginning. This is a little bit longer than the 1 to 2 pages that I had suggested. Um, but so the report comes first. It's done as a traditional academic paper with in-text citations. The annotated bib is down here. So she has her sources listed. She's done an MLA works cited citation for each of them. This was for the previous version of MLA, so you see web and some tip-offs that this is not the current version. But she has the sources here. They're alphabetized. Normally, if you were doing it on paper, you would have these in a hanging indent form, where the first line started at the margin here and the subsequent lines here, pets and March, would be shoved into a regular paragraph indent. But that's a little hard to do on the blog without getting into computer coding. So it's fine to do it just like this. And then I would, if you have electronic sources, I would like you to do hyperlinks for the titles. I do sometimes see students hyperlinking the whole citation. I think that's a little, I don't know, I think it looks nicer. It's a little bit cleaner just to hyperlink the title. So this is a link that if I click on here, it brings me to the site, to the source that she used. So that's if you have electronic sources. Some of you may have used, gone to the library and gotten looked at books. So that in that case, it won't be possible. If you did find a book on Amazon, you could link to the Amazon page. So that's of the five sources. Do the citation. The second part of it is to do the annotation part, and that is a short paragraph that gives a summary of the source briefly, but do try to get some hard, don't just do some general thing like this source tells about the physical and social and psychological benefits of playgrounds. If you're looking at the benefits of playgrounds, any source is going to do that. So you want to try to identify the particular angle of this source or the particular types of information it provides, something a little more specific than just a 1 sentence summary. Three or four sentences is fine. And then I also ask for some kind of a statement about the credibility of the source. So some kind of indication of authority, who the author is, how you know this author is an expert, just to make sure that you're thinking about that as you're providing these sources to your professional source. So this is what it's going to look like. You don't necessarily have to do it formatted quite this way with the bullet points and the smaller type. I think it does look kind of nice visually, I think, with this kind of a format, but you can play around with it a little bit. But you'll have the citation first and then the annotation for each one, like that. So that's the annotated bibliography part. If you have problems with or want resources to help with doing the citation, there are these two here under writing resources. The MLA 8 guide that the library has done, which is about 8 or 10 pages, that gives a good overview. And this is a link to the Purdue OWLS site on the section of their site on MLA citation. This is sort of a standard ref that a lot of the teachers here point students to. There is an MLA handbook if you have some more difficult questions, or you can feel free to email me or ask me about a particular one. It is a new citation format. It is somewhat more flexible than the previous one, and there are some places where it's not necessarily just one right answer in terms of citation. So read through this. EasyBib is also possible to use. They do have MLA 8. If you want some information about that, let me know and I can do a demo. I have demo videos floating around about it that I could link you to. The thing with EasyBib, you want to be careful for what I call the EasyBib error. Sometimes what it does is pick up, give you duplicate titles. Sometimes for an article name and the journal name, it for some reason will pick up the same title and use it both places. So anytime you do an MLA citation and see duplication using EasyBib, you want to look at that source and maybe go back to one of these manual type um, uh, resources. You might have to tidy up some things by hand. Okay, as far as the second part of it, the second part is I'd like you to think of as an overview, sort of summary of the information, the sort of thing. So you've got this annotated bibliography you're going to presumably duplicate and hand out to the members of this board. But you want to do a little bit of talking to introduce them to some of the ideas in the sources. So that's going to be, I think of as a presentation. So if you want to do it, so this walks you through the annotated bib part, and here's the presentation part. If you want to stick with the tried and true sort of report form, you're welcome to do that. That may be the simplest. 1 or 2 pages, try to limit yourself to no more than 2 pages. Do use in-text citations. Concentrate on providing some specific information though. Even though it's short, you want to give some specific information so you're not, again, just generalizing about, playgrounds are good for kids' social development, but give the results of some studies or some statistics or a quote or two, some sort of hard, specific evidence that you could provide for this reader. In addition to this, or in place of this, I should say, typical kind of report, I am for this time going to open you up to some more visual forms of presentation. So if you don't want to do the same old kind of report, you may want to do a photo essay where you take 6 or 8 photographs, images, and combine that with some text that explains that. If you were doing, say, the history one, history of playground design, you may find some photographs online that you could use. There are technically copyright concerns with using images from online, but because this is in an educational setting, and I don't really want to take the time to try to find really good images that are really copyright free, so we're bending the rules a little bit. But I will allow you to use photos from online, but do please provide a source for the photos. You may also want to do PowerPoint, which is, photo essay. PowerPoint could look very similar using photo essay. Typically you do on Word, PowerPoint, obviously using PowerPoint. So you could do a slideshow kind of thing with PowerPoint, or you could use something more traditional kind of PowerPoint that had combine some images and words. Try not to do the death by bullet point where you have a whole lot of text on the slide. If you do construct a PowerPoint, think in terms of a real world PowerPoint where you'd be providing some images and words on the screen, but you also would be talking. So there is the option in PowerPoint to record a voiceover. If you want to try to do that, you're welcome to play around with that, or if you've had experience doing that. If you want to keep it simple, what you might want to think about is writing a script, writing down what you would say if you were actually presenting this, and you could put that in the notes section right below each of the PowerPoint slides. Prezi is also an option, which is a different, rather than working with a set of slides, Prezi works as a sort of a canvas that you can move around and zoom in and zoom out. It's a different sort of a concept, sort of a mind map kind of a concept. It does have somewhat of a learning curve, so if you haven't had any experience with Prezi, I probably wouldn't encourage you at this late date to try to catch on with that. Infographics, one of my, several of my students from my face-to-face class demonstrated a site where you could construct infographics. Seemed really clean and easy, drag and drop kind of thing. Infographics are an increasingly popular way to present particularly statistical or numerical quantitative information with some visual interest as well. If you're interested in that, I will get some links up with some of the information they provided. Brochure, um, it may work with some of these questions. I'm not sure that if you were presenting in front of a school board, say, that a brochure would really be the way to go. But if you want to think in terms of a brochure providing information to a broader public about some aspect, in an attempt to convince them of the value of um, playgrounds or something about playground design, you're welcome to play around with that if you think it's something that fits your question and the information that you have. The brochure templates in Word seem to be pretty easy to work with, so that's what I'd suggest for that. And a video, again, I'm offering that as an option, but I think that it's probably less likely that people will do that. Remember that your purpose is informational, to provide some objective information in an understandable format. No first person, no memories of your days on the playground or watching your kids on the playground. Keep it to fact-based information to try to convince these people of the necessity for renovating this old playground and the benefits that the kids in the community will have from it. Okay, I think that's the rest of it's pretty straightforward. Even though it's just for the report that you're required to use academic in-text citation sort of format, but if you're doing something like a PowerPoint or any of the other formats, do make sure that it's clear where you got your information. The sort of most common way that I see that done in PowerPoint presentations is just with the use of parentheses underneath a quote or underneath a page that has some information or an image that has the author and title of the source. So it should be one of the sources that are already listed in your annotated bibliography. The assignment requires that you use at least 2 of them. So do make sure. You also could indicate something about the source if you were doing a PowerPoint, say, in the script. So you would say, as a result of thus and such a study from thus and such a person. So it doesn't necessarily have to be on the slide, but usually because PowerPoints are often emailed or whatever, people see them online. You want to get that source credited on the screen as well. When you get those 2 things together, the annotated bib, which was due last week, I'm still trying to work at getting some comments on that. I'll try to get that done as soon as I can. And then the summary report. Once you get the 2 things together, if you would please, I think the most logical way to do it is to put the report or the PowerPoint or whatever it is first, and then put the annotated bib. Try to get if it's a PowerPoint or whatever, try to get the thing uploaded onto the blog. If you have any problems uploading anything, or if you can't get a link to it on the blog that's workable, feel free to email me that presentation piece, whatever it looks like. I am going to go ahead and grade the Essay 3s as they're turned in this week. You're still welcome you'll be welcome to revise them after you get the graded version back. But I don't want to take the time to do a rough draft, final draft cycle with this full essay. I want to get moving on to Essay 4 so that hopefully you'll have some time before and during Thanksgiving break to be thinking about what you want to write for Essay 4 and to get going that next week when we come back last week in November. I'm hoping to get drafts in sometime that first week in December so you can get some feedback, especially if you're interested in putting that in your portfolio. Okay, I think that's an overview of the assignment. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments below the post where you see this video, or you could post them as comments to the assignment here. I'll do another video about finding some good quality sources. Um, I think that's it. If there are any other general questions people have and you think you'd like to see a demonstration, let me know. Otherwise, good luck, and I'll look forward to seeing your drafts.